Okay, that's fine. We'll do it then. I've got assist as off air right now.
It Mine says it's on air. It says live.
Hmm. Okay.
Should we trust it?
It just went live for me.
Phew.
All right, I'm ready. Moment of silence. Welcome to episode 210 of the Furlo Bros Tech Podcast. Today is October the 4th, 2015. I'm Matthew Dean Furlo, and not broadcasting from Las Vegas, Nevada, is my brother James Furlo.
Oh gosh, way to make that one work.
I did, I'm gonna say it's not the best I've ever had. I'll be honest.
Is that because
uh
I'm broadcasting from
whenever,
Mars?
yes, exactly. But see, the
Yes.
problem was I was about to go for the Martian, but I did that one last week,
Oh yeah, I guess that's
and
true. And I still haven't seen it yet, so that would have fallen flat pretty quick. So you're in Vegas, huh? What are you doing there?
I uh kind of started out as a birthday thing, which
Well, take
obviously
your time on
not
that.
really my birthday anymore. Yeah. But ended up being a couple of the people that I wanted to come with me for my birthday ended up doing a going with another mutual friend whose birthday was this weekend. So we just sort of it made sense for us to all kind of clump together around this weekend. So we ended up doing that. But
Cool.
I had an experience because part of the
This is your
genesis of this whole
first
thing
time, right?
since I was like 14. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that counts. All right.
yeah. So yeah, obviously it's a completely different thing.
Yes.
um, but one of the things that or kind of how this whole thing came to be was I just reserved a room at the Hilton in near my college, and for an event that was going on, and they asked me to bump me to a promoter line, and the promoter was like, "Hey, we got this deal. We want to give you a 2 night stay, 3 day 2 night stay in any city. It's for free." I was like,
Oh,
sounds like there's a catch there, but okay. Well, there was a
yeah.
catch there, of course. The catch was I had to sit through a 2 hour timeshare meeting.
Yes, classic, classic.
Oh yeah,
Did you
but
sign up? Are you good to
I,
go?
oh yeah, I am already a timeshare. Oh baby, that was so funny because I told the guy of like right at the beginning, I was like, hey, I just want to be honest with you right now. I am totally a sucker for these sorts of sales calls. You are gonna win me over. Like I know I'm gonna want to do this by the end of it, but I have no money, so just make me wish I could.
Yes, that's so
Yeah,
funny.
and yeah, that's exactly what it was. I mean, I think he knew kind of going in because most of the other people in there are like have been Hilton Honor members for like years. They get all sorts of points racked up and stuff, and I'm like, I've stayed at a Hilton once. It was just sort of a random splurge that we that I got the hotel room that one time. So but it was I don't know. It was interesting getting the whole pitch and finding out about how their timeshare program is different than it's not really a timeshare. It's a better program than that.
It's more like a share of
Uh,
time. It's totally different.
exactly. Yeah, and I think it's fascinating watching the sales stuff work, and especially because I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I'm smart enough to be able to understand what they're doing, understand what they're selling, and just sort of see the different movements. And it's like they've gotten some pretty critical reviews online, I guess. And like watching him bring that up and address it and just kind of fluff it off is like, man, just a bunch of people that like they're not even actual members. They were just like in one of these sales. They were here for the weekend for one of these sales things. Didn't have a good experience. Like Hilton has done research. Like we've looked into this and like we're telling and it's we've done our due diligence. We got a 92% whatever. Like you're just giving you the whole spiel about don't listen to people who don't like us. And
Awesome.
I love the it's not gonna there's not gonna be pressure to buy. Don't worry about it. Like just say no at the end. It's no big deal. And I get that. I'm like I get the fact I appreciate the fact that you're not gonna like yell at me for not buying but telling me that like doing the whole sales pitch where you come in and say, okay, so the normal package is a $54,000 like
Uh huh.
unit
Uh huh.
that you buy, but we're not, but you wouldn't use all that stuff. So we're gonna get you a better deal in this one. It's gonna have this down payment with these monthly payments. You think you can do that? And you kind of, that's honestly I could, but I don't really want to. Like I've got other things like this podcast I want to spend money on. And and then they go, okay, well, let's see if we can't make something else work. And they pull out like the even cheat, and they're like, this is like this thing. This is the bottom. Like I can't even look it up on my thing. I know it's there because like I just got off the
Of
phone. It's just, oh
course.
my gosh, watching all the different sales techniques
That's
they were throwing at
awesome.
me and stuff. Yeah, and I'm just like, and the whole time I'm just like, it's so good that I have like $10 in my bank account right now. So because like it's really easy for me to say no. I don't have any money. I'm sorry, but yeah, it was interesting, and of course, like, and then the best part is once you say no and you walk away, then you start actually thinking about it and thinking through, okay, what questions should I have asked that I didn't think of on the spot, and how they kind of, you know, there's like it's inflation proof. Like, how do you, because these things are all guaranteed because they've got this like weird point system so that you can actually use other properties. And it seems cool, but it took me a while to figure out where prices would go up on you and over time and where's the get. And I don't know, it just
So from what I understand of it, and I haven't been through one of those presentations, but I had a boss who he actually does have a timeshare and in Hawaii, but he's like,
nice.
yeah, but he's like, I go for 2 or 3 months every single year. He's like, so it's one of those like, if you were gonna do it anyways, totally worth it. It's
Yeah.
if you weren't going to, and now this is going to cause you to spend more in order to have that option to do it. They go, what they find is that, yeah, you do it that first year, and then you go back to your regular pattern of you don't because you want to go
Right.
somewhere else or whatever. And and so for someone like my boss, where he's like, yeah, I got my spot and I love it, and I go there as often as I can, and he's like, it's a
Yeah, I would.
perfect, it makes a ton of sense for someone like that.
The one thing I will say is that in Hilton's defense, because I feel like I was kind of getting down on them, their program is pretty cool in that yes, you technically own a plot in one of their giant hotel things,
Yeah.
but you never actually find out. Like you can find out which one it is, but you never go there. What you've done is you've bought into the Hilton Corporation,
Hmm.
and then you can timeshare with all sorts of rooms all over the world. And it's just it sounds exactly like what you're saying there. If you're going to use it, if you travel a lot and you want to explore different places, it's a great solution for
Yeah.
that. But they're kind of like those cheap gyms where they get you in at $10 a month, and then they put up a bunch of mirrors because they find psychologically that mirrors make you like really expensive uh, gyms don't have a bunch of mirrors everywhere, which I've always thought was really funny. And they do all these psychological tricks to get you to come in, pay your $10, but never come back, and
Yeah.
just keep paying the $10. And so for people like me who do actively use that sort of a gym, it's a great deal because everybody else who signed up but doesn't use it is subsidizing
Totally. Yeah.
my gym. And I feel like that's exactly what Hilton's got going on, where if you use it, it's actually a good deal, but you got to use it 100%, or they, you know, they're coming out on the other side of that deal. So I don't know. It was definitely interesting. It
That's
was
cool,
a
man.
watching just the business of that stuff move on. But James, you know what? We are not definitely not here to try to sell you a timeshare. This is going to be a no pressure podcast.
I mean, you don't have to listen if you don't want to.
And say at the end, you just say yes or no, whichever. Just I'm not going to ask you more than once. Just
We're
yes
gonna
or
ask
no.
about your email, but you could say no. It's all right.
Exactly, exactly. Um, but instead, this week, like every week, we'll be talking about technology and the continuing corporate opera. And by that, we mean the soap opera corporations' dealings back and forth, the people working for them, their marketing campaigns, and of course, the technology they are developing. But before we get into the heart of the show, James has got a short disclosure he'd like to throw your way.
I work for HP, but do not represent HP or any of HP's opinions. And full disclosure, I have a position in Twitter and Etsy. I had to think about it.
So you're gonna vote for Jack Dorsey to be CEO
Oh,
again?
dude, yeah,
That's
totally. When that
so
comes
they
up.
put your ear to the ground. That's what the rumors are. Jack Dorsey's back on top after they said, and he's gonna be doing Square. After they said absolutely not, no way we'd let him be CEO of both. Ugh. It's so stupid. That's so
Classic.
obvious from the beginning. Yeah. Me, I own a bunch of different stocks, and I still haven't just put in my passcode for Robinhood because the last time I looked, it was so depressing. And but it's like it's Microsoft and Google, not Google actually, but GoPro and a hodgepodge of tech companies like that. You know what? This week I'm going to make it a mission to re-log into my Robinhood account and see how much money I've lost. Uh, but yeah, if you want to follow us throughout the week, we're all up on the social media doing Facebook and Instagram and that sorts of things. I My Instagram is nextwiggin4, NEXTWIGGIN, the number 4. My Twitter is at Matthew D. Furlo.
I was talking with a guy this weekend, and he was saying he met a kid whose name was Ender, and
Really?
it was at a family event thing. I mean, it was like a younger kid, and
Yeah.
it was funny. He was like, "Ah, Ender, like Ender's Game," and a bunch of the family members were like, "What's that?" And
What?
I mean, the parents knew, the
Okay.
parents knew, but the
Okay.
extended family was like, "What's Ender's Game?"
I was going to say, that would be extraordinary for.
Yeah. Wow, you just plucked that one right out of the air, huh? Yeah, pretty funny. I was like, dude, that's awesome. Yeah, pretty cool. I am James Furlo at twitter.com, elsewhere, everywhere.
So, speaking of social media and the ability to, check up on people and see what they're doing,
Yeah.
there is a new app that is going to be launched probably in late November. What is it? What is it called? I can't even. Oh man, it's getting by on the description of it's Yelp for people. So I think we've talked about this. I know they did an episode on Community
Is this like
where
not hot or not? Or, oh, they did on Community. That was hilarious.
yeah, basically what you do is you put somebody it lets you
It's
rate
people spelled with
people.
two E's.
Oh yeah. That's right. Yeah, thank you. Um, yeah, so it basically lets you rate people, and the trick is the hard part because I was it's funny I thought about a similar style app. You almost can't be in tech and not think about it. But one of the challenges is how do you get people onto your app? With Yelp, there's the easy thing of you just drive around and look at businesses, put them on there, and then let people start rating away. You don't need active participation, but people it's a little more difficult, especially now that Facebook has locked down their friend graph, so you can't just download somebody's entire friend graph. Uh, so this company came up with a clever solution to the dilemma, where basically what you do is you put your friends on there, you can rent or enemies, whatever. Who am I to judge?
Of
I'm going to
course.
get. I was gonna say the whole point of this is judging, so that's who I am.
Yeah, let's
But
start with that.
put put those sorts. You can put anybody on there and then rate them. Um, and
How do you like, what do you mean when you say rate them? Like, do you have different vectors in which you can do the rating? Like in terms of looks, 7. In terms of personality, give them an 8. In terms of athleticism, about a 2. Or is it just kind of like, it's just a straight up scale 1 to 10?
it's Yelp. It's just like Yelp. You will be able to
Right.
assign reviews and 1 to 5 stars for everyone you know.
How is this any different than LinkedIn? I guess you got an actual rating and it's not a recommendation
Yeah,
per se.
correct. And it's not
Hmm.
it's not for jobs. It's coworkers, the old guy that lives next door, exes, and you could rate them on
This should
whatever
end well.
criteria you want. Oh yeah, this is awesome. You can't, and the big trick here is you can't opt out. Once someone puts your name in the people system, it's there unless you violate the site's terms of service, and you can't delete bad or biased reviews. That would defeat the whole purpose. Uh, One of the tricks is though that in trying to incentivize people to actually use it is they're limiting. You can see the overall rating, and you can only see good comments unless you actually sign up, and then you can see what the negative reviews
Naturally.
are. But that's when they go live as well for everybody. So it's kind of a, it's a
Huh.
double-edged sword. If you want to know what people are saying about you and why they're saying it, then you got to sign up. um, which is actually kind of a weird dilemma, because it does incentivize you to not join, because then only
Yeah,
the
I
good
would.
reviews would be live. But if curiosity gets the better, I'm heck of signing up. I want. I you know what my problem is. Some people will occasionally accuse me of having a bit of an ego, so I actually sit here confidently thinking, oh, I'll have great reviews. People love me.
People love me.
Only positive.
Gosh darn it. Yeah. Yeah, that's when it's going to be fun, right? Is when you have, um, for like, for you and me, there's limited, but it'll be interesting for, public figures.
Yeah.
That's where it's going to get interesting.
Yeah, it's funny. I do like the idea of doing a more complicated, like you said, vector system where it's you come up with a bunch
Right.
of
And that's, I mean, think
categories.
about that with Yelp, right? It's price, food, um, what's that one where atmosphere? You got your overall score, but then you have the sub stuff as well,
Right,
which
and
I
yeah,
appreciate.
is like I've the idea that I when I was kind of working through this is I liked it. What's my reputation? That's sort of what we want to build. I want to build what, and you could pitch it on the whole thing of, you can't positively affect your reputation until you know what your reputation is, and this is a method for figuring it out.
Yeah. Okay, that's
That's
fair.
what this system is, and so it'd just be a more complicated rating system. But really, you would be working on the whole hot or not sort of the ability for people to be awful and judgmental, and that would be the ideal way to get business.
Huh.
But yeah, it's pretty interesting. I will probably sign up when it goes live, because you know why not?
Because why not?
Yeah.
I my gut instinct says I should not, but I don't know why.
Yeah.
Interesting. Hmm. Fascinating. People rating people. Oh my gosh. There are certain things about the society that I'm not sure about. This would be one of them.
Yeah.
Which the cool part about it is if it is lame, it won't go anywhere.
Right.
Hmm. Yeah, I think they really are gonna have to. They're gonna have to deal a lot with cyberbullying on this. I could see some high school kids just being super mean. I mean,
Yeah.
you've seen
That.
it on Yik Yak, right, where it's kind of anonymous, and so people are not nice at all. And that was the other problem that what was it Whisper, I think, was the other one, where they had a huge cyberbullying problem. And I mean, which I don't know, that's what's cool about LinkedIn, right? Where it's like give a recommendation, which for the most part does positive only, because you're not going to give a negative recommendation. You just won't give anything.
Right.
So, because that's what you'd like to see is somehow they. I mean, you want it to be honest, but I think if you have more good reviews rather than bad reviews, that's what'll lead to success. And which is what Yelp is constantly battling against as well. Um, I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Right.
Hmm.
Right.
People.
What I'm looking forward to is when they offer up paid accounts that allow you to manage negative reviews. Because that to me is going to be, that's the obvious, really real scumbag
Well, that's what
way to
Yelp
make a lot
does.
of money.
So yeah,
Exactly.
why
Yeah,
not?
that's my point. It's a yeah. It's I could totally see that happening for
Why not?
for 99 cents a month. We'll let you manage your negative reviews, aka delete negative reviews.
What'll be interesting to see is if it really sticks with people or if brands get added as well. not obviously not on purpose, but you know what I mean, where people
Yeah.
just, especially if they do well in the SEO department, that's when you'll start to see like, okay, we're going to put a review of this other company on here, treat them like they're a person, and then go from there. But I guess it'll be interesting to see how all that works.
Right.
I don't know.
Fascinating.
Yeah, they got potential. We'll see. There is another company out there that one would say has tapped their full potential, and unfortunately, it may not be enough. So
Yes.
I don't know if you remember, but I'm looking it up. Well, I do this. Where is it? Da, 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 da. Back in time, Steve Jobs was quoted as telling Dropbox that its company was a feature and not a product. Remember that back when he was trying to acquire them?
Yeah.
And Dropbox was like, no, we're really a company. It appears that Dropbox is losing favor with the technorati.
Really?
Yeah. So, Dropbox, obvious strength is syncing files.
Yes.
And and you've got your account, and sharing, syncing between files or computers is amazing, and they genuinely do the best job from what I've could tell. And they're worth whatever it is, $10 billion, right? It's a lot. They've got over 400 million users, and they're not small. And so on one hand, it seems like they're doing well, but on the other hand, what they're finding is that they're starting to get squeezed on a lot of different sides. So one of the things that Dropbox tried to do was move more into the enterprise and enable better collaboration.
Right.
However, so far that seems to have been like sharing files and folders, which is genuinely helpful. But, from a collaboration standpoint, they're like, it could be better. And so you think like the new Office 2016, which, by the way, I am now an Office 365 member and have the new Excel. I actually, so, you download the entire thing and it gives you 5 of the apps, right? Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and OneNote.
Yeah.
I got those, and I almost deleted everything but Excel. And ultimately, I just deleted OneNote and Outlook because I'm like, I don't even care. I'm not going to use those. I'm going to keep the other 3. But man, I was close to just like, this is all I really want. And but what's cool about this update, like we talked about last week, was all the collaboration stuff that's in there, where you can actually do edits in real time. Plus Google, they got their thing, and Apple doesn't have their thing, but whatever. And but they do have the iCloud. Well, okay, so the collaboration, right? They're like, Dropbox has said they want to get into it, but in terms of getting into it, again, not a whole lot has been going on other than allowing teams to better share files. It's kind of the extent of it. So they're getting a lot of pressure from a feature set standpoint in an area where they have said they wanted to expand. They just haven't really expanded. And different products that they've got, like the carousel for the photos, people are like, okay, whatever. At the time it was nice, I guess, but now Apple has their photos thing, and Google, which we'll talk about a little bit later, has their photos thing, and they're all like, they're just as good and cheaper.
Yeah.
And so they're like, so it's one of those where they're getting killed on the feature set, and the places where they used to have differentiation and now other companies are catching up and are cheaper. And so like there's the iCloud Drive and Google Drive and what's Microsoft's OneDrive, right? We got all these drives around now, right?
Right.
And it's like they're all pretty good, or at least good enough, and cheaper.
Right.
I mean, Dropbox is free, but it's like, yeah, so is Google Drive. Big deal.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you sign up for the Office thing, your OneDrive is included in that too, and you get a whole lot more space. for that price. And so so it's just, again, people are like, they're big, they're not going anywhere, momentum, that kind of stuff. But people are really starting to say, like, Dropbox could run into a significant problem here if they're getting pricing pressure, and so they may have to start cutting their prices, which obviously has a lot of negative stuff on their behalf in terms of doing R&D and hiring and all that fun stuff. But then they're starting to get lapped. And they were really like, it's really been the last year, maybe 2 years or so, where it's become very obvious that their product has kind of languished, and people are
Right.
like, what are they doing with all those engineers? Because they've bought some startups. Remember, they bought the what was that mail app, and I can't remember. I think it's just called Mail or something like that.
Very creative.
I mean, it's whatever I can't remember, and probably can't look it up fast enough. Where they're just like Mailbox. That's what it's called. And
That should have been easier, James.
close, yeah, I know. And they're like, they've done nothing with it. As a matter of fact, the updates have stopped completely. And so they're just like, what's happening with these guys? And then you have other stuff, like Slack is another one that seems to be the up and comer that is allowing for some file sharing and stuff like that, along with the collaboration. And so, just like super Debbie Downer on Dropbox, which, I mean, like, I use it pretty much every single day, and it is my go-to thing. And every important document is saved in Dropbox. And I've got, every time they have some sort of free competition, I do it. And so I'm up to like 12.5 gigabytes of space, which for like the important docs, it's good enough. That works for it. I'm not saving photos or video or music or anything like that. And if I was, I'd totally be in trouble.
Yeah.
But so it works for what I'm doing. But yeah, I can. Sounds like it's. Yeah.
So so my hot take on this one is I'd been using Dropbox, big fan of it, and brought it in to me, brought in that experience to work, and my boss had just kind of learned about it. He really liked it, and it made a lot of sense for us to have like shared folders across the company. And my boss thought it was great. So for everything, he wanted everything available everywhere. So my boss actually bought
Ooh, he got the big one.
He got the big one. He got a bunch of space. Well, I had the free account. And the problem had become that our shared account, all of a sudden, my boss was willing to put anything in there because he had space for it, but the rest of us didn't. And
Oh.
it was pushing out our space. And it was literally getting to the point where I was managing megabytes on Dropbox. And I finally just was like, this is super frustrating because I could go and I started to, what it eventually became was I had to get more space. I was going to have to start paying for it.
He didn't get Dropbox for Teams or business or whatever, huh?
No,
he just got a big personal account for himself.
Yeah, because we kind of did it before. Well, that's not. So this is the thing. If I had gone to my boss and brought that all up, I think he would have been like, he would have said okay, and he'd have upgraded it. If I had made the argument, it would have been okay. Like, it was just more of it wasn't a problem for at the time. The teams weren't available, and it worked for him. And nobody brought it to him that, hey, there's this new dilemma coming up. And one of the things that I sat there and I was just thinking, man, I'm gonna have to go through this process, but I can get more and more entrenched in Dropbox. I can have my boss be paying for it and everything, but I kind of asked the question of, is there something better? Is there something else that I'd like to use? And at the time, this is a couple of months back, Apple had just put out their iPhoto stuff, and I had a bunch of photos on my phone, and I thought it would be pretty useful to be able to have all my photos and videos backed up. But I have enough where like the base package from Apple, like the free tier, just wasn't enough.
Right.
Really, the next paid tier was enough, but I had to fill it up eventually, and I was like, or I would fill it up rather quickly. I was like, you know what? What if I just got off Dropbox completely? What if I went all in on Apple because I like their photos application, and I know it's not as cheap as the other competitors, but it's not far off. And I was just like, you know what? I'll do it. So I signed up for that, and I've been using Apple's file syncing stuff, and all of my personal stuff has been moving to an Apple-centric system, and it's great because
can you access that on a Windows PC?
Yeah, you just go to iCloud.
Oh, okay.
It's super easy. I mean, you can't actually no. That you know what? No, it works just like Dropbox. You got iCloud, and you can download the application and access it like a folder.
Oh,
I mean, it
really?
is yeah, it is a Dropbox competitor through and through. And it's a little
Because I was
more
gonna say,
expensive.
dude, having to go to a website, that's kind of lame to
Yeah,
download and re-upload files.
it would be, but
But
the
that's not
nice part
happening.
is it's not the case. And I sit there and I go, and I'm if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, should I get Apple, Apple's version of it?" I would probably say, unless you're really invested in like photos and the whole Apple ecosystem, no, go with the cheaper option. But I think I've got Google, I've got the Google Drive, I've got OneDrive, and the fact that like you said, the technocrats, the technolati, what was that term you used?
Technorati.
The technorati. Yeah, I like that one. The fact that the technorati are moving away from the Dropbox as their go-to solution is illuminating. And yeah, like you said, there's I guess what my point is that on a visceral, personal, anecdotal level, I totally buy it. It feels like that's what's happening to me. Since what this is what that's exactly what this podcast is all about. Us sharing our gut instincts. Yeah.
Yeah, huh. So you're really saying, because I mean, one of their big pitches originally was, um, you know, it works on all devices, all platforms. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You could have a Mac and an Android device and a Windows 10 PC, or and change your mind to a Mac 2 years later, and you're good, right?
I
That's
th-
lost.
right. I think that's the only limitation is that there's not an Android app for Apple, but Google obviously has one for everything. Uh, Microsoft has one for everything. Amazon has don't they have something where you can do storage if you're an Amazon
Uh,
Prime member,
I
or
feel
is it
like
just
it's
photos?
a
I think it's just
music thing.
photos.
Maybe it's photos.
But it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, there. I don't. There's a lot of pressure, and it's a great way to use giant server farms that in a really uh, a useful way, because it's just sort of, well, we got extra space, let's charge random consumers for it, and they get all your data. Well, I think Dropbox is there. One of the points is technology like that you have to pay attention to is that they're like an inevitable thing that has to happen. Everybody else would get there eventually, and they came early on and they did some really cool stuff early on, and they were the first to the market. But then you have to be the first to the market again and come up with some new solution. I think Steve Jobs' point was eventually everybody will have a Dropbox solution, and that's platform independent but really optimized for your specific platform. Whereas Dropbox is kind of in that no man's land of it's platform independent, but it's not optimized for anything. So you lose that, and then you have the price point problem. And then the only thing that they've got going for them is that people are already using it. There's a momentum there. But, that's not enough to survive long term.
Right, right. Yeah, and they're starting to hit the long term, is what it's starting to sound like. Huh. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. But
Okay.
very cool.
Okay. Yeah, so that's where Dropbox is at. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely. But speaking of companies that are pushing the limits of what we can do, Tesla made a couple of announcements this week. Elon Musk, in his normal fashion, kind of made some move. He always likes to, like, they're gonna announce something, and then he goes on and announces a bunch of other stuff at the same time and sort of talks about the end of days and just sort of how robots are going to kill everybody and how we're going to save humanity with our electric car. Like, it's craziness. He's got like a thing that he does when he goes on these, because I think what's happened is they set him up for an interview because they've got some announcement to make, but they've realized that they could have asked him just about anything and he'll give an honest answer. And so he just gets all these crazy quotes out there whenever they announce a new device or a new car, new feature, whatever. So that happened this week. It's awesome. Tesla announced the Model X, the final pricing on it. The Model X is their SUV crossover, whatever the heck that even means. It's they
To
they had
me,
an
I'm like, it's a Subaru,
yeah, but
right?
I think that's technically what a crossover is, but I I it's weird how they I these buckets don't have any meaning anymore. They're all differentiations without a difference. But he that's what it feels like, at least. But anyways, so this is their new big car. This isn't the cheap consumer car. This is kind of their next step in your mid to high range cars. This one I think counts as a high range car because along with certain features and stuff that were going on, they announced the price will be in the ballpark of $135,000 for the Model X.
That's a lot of money.
It's a ton of money.
A
That is
hundred and what happened to moving like down market?
it's coming, James. Don't worry about it.
Gosh, hopefully.
Yeah, that's an expensive car.
I mean, the double doors, I guess, look cool, but not that cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about like your high-end Porsche SUVs, the Porsche SUV crossover, which is not to the Cayenne, the Cyan, whatever that one. That one's almost $100,000 car, and but it's just a luxury SUV. Why you need a luxury SUV, I'll never understand. It's got more dollars than cents, but he but that's clearly the market that they're going for with this one, where that's what it's designed for. Um, I think to me, if that was the only thing that he said this week, I'm not even sure I would have mentioned it on the show. But thankfully, that's not the only thing he said this week.
Mm.
um, he the he also talked about the future of Tesla and things that they've got coming down the pipe. And one of the big ones is
This
he
guy,
says
dude. I love it.
Tesla cars will be able to go 620 miles on a single charge within 2 years
That's
by the
pretty
end of
good.
2017. Yeah, that's a heck of a go. Now, technically, they can go over 400 miles on a charge already, or 450, but you have to go like at a painful 24 mile per hour on flat land sort of thing. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to stretch
On the
every
track, we got it to modeled to go this
right.
far. Yeah, yeah.
Which is so in his defense, that's a 620 miles is a third again, or it's a half again that, which means you would expect that same sort of 50% increase compared to what they currently have for their normal models, if that's what he's talking about. And he didn't say specifically, but that's the sort of improvements that we're looking for, right? Because all of a sudden that would mean if you can do 620 under extreme conditions, it means you can do over 300 under normal conditions, which is about what people expect from a gas tank. So that's
Take a
pretty
guess.
cool. They right.
No problem.
Um,
I got your
so,
back.
thank you. So yeah, it's very cool. It's an exciting direction that they're
Future in
going.
2 years.
Exactly. But he didn't stop there. He also said that he would be selling fully autonomous cars within 3 years.
Really?
Yeah. He said you probably won't be able to use the functions because they won't be legal, but he said they'll be able to sell them.
I love that guy.
And I know. And the advantage that he'll have is he says that within 3 years we'll be able to sell them, and then within 3 years after that, so within 6 years, we expect them to actually be legal on streets and stuff, and you'll be able to use those functions at least in certain areas on certain roads. And they're so they're sitting there saying, yes, we'll sell you the package, it'll cost more, and you won't be able to use it, but within 3 years you will be able to, depending on your location. And that's how these things start. It's the governments, for good reason, are going to want to watch this make sure we're not, these runaway robots aren't going to be killing all sorts of people as you uh, drive along the busy streets of your town, USA. So I'm not telling him no, but yeah, that's pretty
Huh.
cool. And then finally, he also announced this week that he doesn't think humanity will last another 20 years.
What?
Yeah, I know. It's just like, what? You just like climate change, state of war. He goes, it's, the current trajectory, unless we do something enormous.
Singularity. Yeah.
Yeah, unless we do something enormous, there's just too many ways for us to end human life as we know it on planet Earth. And that is part of his explanation for the whole got to send people to Mars, gotta build the Tesla motors, gotta build the Hyperloop. All of these technologies are really stuff that are focused around this larger idea of how do you save humanity. And like the reason why they move
Hey, I
fast.
guess, I mean,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
motivation sounds a little crazy, but if it produces good products and
I know. That's
produce-
what's so crazy to me is that like he believes it, man. He believes it in his soul that that's
wow.
the course we're on. That we are in peril and probably too far gone. But he's going to do everything he can to try to turn it around as quick as he can.
Hmm.
And in the case that he can't succeed, he's going to try to colonize Mars.
Just got a backup plan. Sounds
I
rational.
know. I know.
I was talking to a guy this weekend, and they were talking about how technology was going to be the doom of humanity as well. And it was an interesting conversation. I think it was like they were half serious. I think I couldn't fully tell. But one of them, they were like, think about this. Um, a certain very large technology company, their logo is the bitten apple from the Garden of Eden. And I was like, huh. I guess I never really thought about it like that, I suppose. And then they're like, and the Google Chrome logo, like if you take the colors, make it black and white, and wherever the colors are, create a seam, it creates three rotated number sixes. And
Whoa.
they're just like, the mark of the beast, it's in front of us. And I was just like, I didn't fully know how to respond to this.
You see, the
So I
problem when you're
suppose that's
talking to
possible.
a crazy person, telling them they're crazy has the unfortunate side effect of like they've got going for them is they're
But are they
crazy.
crazy, or are they just onto something that we're all
James, they're
oblivious to?
they're crazy.
Yeah. Like I said, I think they were more of like, yeah. I mean, I definitely, my reaction was, I feel like we're making this work. Um,
Yeah.
but but at the same time, I didn't, again, just in case this person's listening. Which he may or may not be. I don't think you're crazy, but
Well,
and
I
I don't
don't
think
know
he
you,
represented it
so
as like hardcore. This is what I truly think it
well,
is. It was just
yeah.
more like an observation,
Well,
right?
it's funny. I've watched YouTube videos and stuff like that, and like the six hidden truths about the world's biggest tech companies,
Oh, there you
and
go. Yeah,
the
yeah.
things they don't, your classic clickbait title, and you watch it, and it's just so obnoxious. Reading it, it's just like, oh, this is awesome. I love this, but I, I just do not buy the idea that people either intentionally or unintentionally are creating logos for their products that are insinuating
Yeah. Well, and
being.
honestly, if they knew that, they would probably change the logo,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because they're
Yeah.
not trying to. Well, and I think, and one of the someone else at this table I was at, he brought up a good point where he was like, you know what, technology is a tool, just like anything else. It can be used for good and for bad. And he was like, you think about like iron, right? On one hand, you can mold iron to create a plow and plant seeds and create food to
Hmm.
live with it. On the other hand, or even better, and it was like, or you could create a sword and go kill your fellow human mean. And they're like,
Right.
either way, right? And so, and in theory, technology could be a similar thing. But I guess the question is, well, which one does it tend to better facilitate? But
Yeah.
yeah, but Elon Musk thinks we're in a world of 20 years. Boy, I hope
Yeah.
someone set the egg timer for him on that one.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, Elon, how's
Fight.
it going? Watch him just commit suicide in like 19 and a half
Oh
years just from
man.
depression. And we'll be like, oh, the loss.
Oh
We all
no.
knew it. We all knew it.
Yeah. He
Oh,
was
I'm gonna
getting
be
out
so
early.
upset if that comes true and I called it right now. I I mean, let me say this differently. I will have mixed emotions about the issue.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I guess it's like
uh,
success, but at what cost? Yeah.
I'm okay
By the
being
way,
wrong in this situation.
I think this is a little bit off topic, but it's worth mentioning. The answer is, in general, it's been good for humanity. But the reason why we think that it's not, if we don't, is confirmation bias, which is when things are going well in the way we expect them to, it doesn't tend to stand out in our minds, and so it doesn't make a very impactful memory. But when something horrible happens, we think about it, or it makes a very impactful, and we actually are biased towards things that are infrequent oftentimes. And it's sort of like the whole murders on, children getting murdered on Halloween. Statistically speaking, that's actually one of the safest nights of the year because everybody's on high alert. But because it's such an extraordinary thing and everything's out, and there's so many impactful memories, so many things that can create an impactful memory, that every time there's anything, we have this highlighted memory of it. And to bring it back to technology, most days plutonium is generating huge portions of clean energy for people all over the world and really doing great work. But you set off a nuke once or twice and it sort of gets a bad rep. you know and
Good point. Good point.
it's that's the ultimate in confirmation bias, where we are terrified of a technology that is, generally speaking, very safe and has huge upsides, but because of the potential to be bad and the occasional leak, we we think it's an evil technology and we campaign against it. But you know go and be scared of the boogeyman. I don't care, it's not my life. I can tell you how I'm going to rate you. That's
Wow. Yeah. We bring that around. All right. So
so.
crazy expensive car, lots of miles, end of the world.
So speaking of Satan, I think we're
That's
going to move
cool.
on to the next company.
Yeah. So Google had I can't remember what was it called. It's not I/O. It
It's
was
not.
just
It's just like it's sort of like the Apple's got WWDC, and then they have the iPhone event. This
then they have
is
hardware.
right.
Okay.
This is the iPhone event.
Got it. Got it. And then next week Microsoft has their hardware event.
Right.
Okay. Gotcha. I understand. So Google had their iPhone event. I think I found a title. And
Yeah.
They announced a bunch of stuff. A bunch of really cool stuff, actually.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if we have a specific order. I feel like it makes the most sense to start with the phones and then talk about the old tab and go from there.
Yeah, no, it's
But
funny. I think
I
you're
like that.
absolutely right, but I'm actually most bored by the phones. So they announced two phones. Problem with the phones being that in classic phone style, there's nothing like revolutionary coming along. Basically made a bigger and smaller Nexus phone, one called the 6P, the other called the 5X. And they both come with fingerprint scanners and screens and batteries and cool cameras and stuff.
Yeah, I hear the 6P's camera is good.
Yeah, yeah. It's so basically the 6P is sort of like their super powered phone. The 5X is actually kind of their laid back phone. It's an
So
interesting.
I
Yeah.
read a which we're not gonna link to this, so too bad. Because it was a
Mhm.
BuzzFeed article that was saying, uh, they were kind of like two phones this year. What's up with that? So when the Nexus program of originally launched, it was kind of a proof of concept type of thing, right?
Right.
The idea was to show the rest of the ecosystem, here's what you could do. But what they
Yeah.
found was that they actually started to have a loyal fan base of Nexus users who were like, we like the Nexus device the best. And then last year, when they unveiled their Nexus phone, they did the whatever it is, the 7.8-inch screen. I'm kidding, it's not that big. Um,
Yeah.
the probably 5.8 or 6-inch screen, the bigger version of it. And what they found is they got a lot of pushback from people who are like, "Well, I love Nexus devices, but the screen's too big." And so this year, they're treating it more as like, no, this is for people to buy, while at the same time saying, "Here's what you can do."
Right.
And and so that's why they came out. Tell me if you've heard about the strategy before, about two different sizes. So for the big one, that's where they really are pushing the envelope. They're making the best of the best that they can fit into it, and then they do have the 5X, which is more of a yeah, it is cheaper, but it is really about getting the screen size to where a majority of their fans like it, and
Yeah.
so that's why they have two now, and but I hear both are highly capable and good phones. And yeah, the finger. What do you think about the fingerprint support being on the back of the phone?
Well, so if you, I don't know if we talked about this, but originally, though, there is a dimple on the back of the Moto X. There's a dimple on the back of the Nexuses. There's a couple of phones with dimples on the back, and
Huh?
it's because they had been licensing with this fingerprint sensor company out of Florida. I can't remember the name of them, and actually had been buying their chips and incorporating them. And the plan had always been to put the fingerprint scanner in that where that dimple is
Oh,
in the
okay.
back. And then as they were doing all those, as they were building these phones, getting ready to do it, all of a sudden this other company came in and bought the fingerprint scanner. Happened to be Apple. It is now Touch ID.
Oh,
And the problem was that these guys were building the best fingerprint scanners in the world. And it was like this pretty advanced technology. And everybody else in the fingerprint scanning market were like inferior scanners. So everybody, all these phone companies were suddenly like, what's going on here?
yeah.
So
Hmm.
they
That's
all
right.
had to hit the handbrake, and that's where the whole dimple in the back of the phone thing came from. Is that's where they were going to put the fingerprint scanners. That's where they thought it was best suited. Um, Having used some of the bigger phones, I get it. Your phone, your hand is right there. That actually makes a lot of sense. It's I'm not sure it makes so much sense that it's like I can't believe Apple wouldn't do that. I think I think both where the thumb goes and where the pointer finger goes on the back are good locations. It's a good way to leave the bezel the way it is on their phones and sort of the buttons, just from an ergonomics perspective. I think it's a cool idea. I think it's a good idea, I should say. I don't know if it's the future. I don't think Apple will ever shift in that direction. There is kind of like your cases have to be different because
Yeah. Right. I didn't think about that.
but how big of a deal is that? You just have to put a hole in the back of the case.
Yeah, I guess
So
that's true.
it's not like it's a big deal, but it's just something
Might
that
make
you
an
got to consider
OtterBox a
now.
little more difficult, but I guess you weren't going to use the Touch ID thing or whatever they call this, the fingerprint scanner, anyways.
Right. So it's a
Okay. That
yeah.
makes sense. That makes sense. I'm on
Yeah,
board.
yeah. One of the interesting things with the Nexus 5X versus the 6P is that the resolution on the 5X is kind of sad compared to other devices. It's actually the same as the 6S Plus, but it's the 6S has got the worst screen resolution out of everybody, which is something I, I wonder about. Apple like leapfrogged everybody with Retina display, and then everybody else has leapfrogged Apple. And I wonder if you'll watch that happen again in like 2 or 3 years, where Apple will just go, and we've quadrupled the resolution again, or if they're satisfied just sort of being good enough and lagging behind and saving, making savings there. But what I thought was interesting was that one of Nexus's, the Apple actually, or not Apple, Google came out with the Nexus 5X and said, look, we put a low resolution screen on the 5X compared to everything else. And the reason why we did that is because there's huge energy savings when you do that. You don't need as big of a battery, and that battery goes further. And for a number of reasons, both in how much light you need to produce from the backlight screen and how many pixels are you driving and how hard is the chipset working, things along those lines. But they looked at it as we're not trying to jip you out of it. We're trying to give you a phone that lasts longer and has more power at a screen resolution that is good enough for the best selling phone in the world, the iPhone 6s. So interesting move on that, from that part, I thought. But yeah, like you said, they both have the same cameras, so they're both pretty cool cameras. They're on the same ballpark as the 6 and the 6S, or the 6S's, I mean. Yeah, they've got a pretty good battery life. I don't know. They're interesting phones, but
Okay. But you said you're more interested in the Pixel C.
Oh yeah,
which I can't remember what the C stands for now. I knew it at one point in time. It was, oh my gosh, what did it stand for? The guy said it. He was
I
like,
can't
the
remember.
Pixel C, which stands for classic or
Cool,
gloss or cupboard or something.
comfortable cutboard. Yeah. So basically, they unveiled a Surface that runs Android. This is to me, this is kind of a big deal because it's going along that lines of, it's the iPad Pro, it's the Surface. There's clearly amongst the tech companies, there's a view that that's the way that we're moving. We're moving in the direction of high-powered phone or high-powered tablets with keyboards, and that are even a step beyond. They're really tablets with a keyboard
It's
covered,
convertible. I got
as
it.
opposed, well, they're not even, they're even a step further than convertibles, I think.
No, that's what the C stands for. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, is that? Never mind, I guess it's not a step further than convertible. Well, one of the really interesting points here is that, no, wait, what does it run? Did I get that backwards?
It's Android. It runs Android.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that's what's really
Which
interesting here
inherently
is that,
runs Chrome, right? I mean,
right. Well, but that's really one of the interesting shifts here is that, so the Pixel originally was a Chromebook that with a it's a really high-end Chromebook. Basically, this is their statement of saying, look, Apple's not that special. If we charged $1,000 for a computer, we could make a really cool computer too. Which, point taken. But you don't have the image, so nobody buys your computer. Sorry. But they're sort of keeping that brand going of the super high-end devices. Once again, saying, look, anybody can build an iPad Pro. But I think, to what a lot of people found fascinating here was the decision to not use Chrome on this device, but to go with Android. And, because those two operating systems have always sort of coexisted in a weird balance against each other. And it's never really been clear if Google has made it seem like they're trying to keep both out of each other's way, insofar as they're not going to make, if Android all of a sudden pushes into Chrome territory, they want to let Android succeed. They're not protectionary over one or the other winning. At the same time, they want them to have like a clear purpose. And so it's an interesting dynamic that the two teams have, I think. And having Android win for this device is another step in that. Okay, interesting. Well, let's see where this is going. But it does look like a cool tablet. I mean, it's a super high end tablet. That tablet that runs Android, which is awesome.
Yeah, I don't want to say it. I heard the keyboard they spent some time on the keyboard, which
Yeah.
genuinely seems pretty cool.
And
Where yeah, I don't know. It's cool. If I were an Android person and looking for, I think it's I don't know if it's iPad level yet, but I think if I were in the Android ecosystem, it would be one of the first ones I look at.
yeah,
Even though the price relative to other Android tablets is a whole lot more.
yeah, I think that there is something to be said for having super high end devices that that.
Well, if it works reliably and you don't have to replace it every couple of years, it actually has a 3, 4 year lifespan cycle. And during year 3 and 4, or especially year 3, you're like, it actually still works pretty well. That's worth some money if you're using it regularly.
Yeah, yeah,
'Cause, yeah.
it's funny. It's funny that you said that. So I for this podcast, when I do it abroad, I will generally bring my iPhone and my iPad, and one will act as my microphone setup, and the other will act as my kind of notepad. So it's usually the phone I'm doing the broadcast from, and then the iPad I'm using to look at notes and stuff. And I actually changed it up this week. My iPad is, because I've got the new 6S Plus, and it's big enough to easily do notes. But as I was like turning on the Wi-Fi and getting everything going on the iPad, all of a sudden it occurred to me, like, it was the first time I was like, wow, this is awful. I can't believe how slow this is. I can't put up with this. Like, for whatever reason, the instant speed boost I got with the 6S Plus just didn't impress me until going back to the slower platform. And
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
and now it's like, okay, all right, I'm ready for a new iPad. I'm ready for
Ah,
two tablets. You've sold me,
interesting.
Apple. Yeah. So but the reality of it is, I got the iPad. It's got the internals of the iPad too. It's just, you know, that's all.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting. As
uh,
people upgrade their phones, their iPads will suddenly seem slower. Hmm.
yeah, yeah, good one, because it is.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I get that. Interesting. Okay.
but to me, I don't. Did you did you see their the Chromecast that they launched?
I read a little bit about it. I mean, it sounded like there was like two big differences. I don't know. I didn't think it was like amazingly different, but maybe I missed something. So it was like better Wi-Fi, and then their main app is better at content discovery.
Yes. So that is what they did with the Chromecast 2.0. And if you like your Chromecast, if you like the Chromecast platform, it's a good upgrade. It's a solid upgrade. It doesn't change the game at all, but it just sort of keeps the ball rolling. And it's weird because it does live. It exists in this world once again with their Nexus TV platform, which is a full blown smart TV tuner type platform. And you kind of ask the question, what's the difference between that and the Chromecast? I'm not exactly sure. With that, they kind of once in Google fashion, they exist in these weird balances where they seem like competitive platforms, but they're different theories of operation. And I think you're starting to watch the Chromecast evolve towards what the Nexus TV is. And I think one day you'll see the two of them meet somewhere in the middle. But the one I got actually pretty excited about is the Chromecast Audio. I am,
Really?
yeah. I'm fast. I'm gonna look into buying one or two
Really?
because, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Tell me more.
so I have this problem where I've got a couple of different speakers. I've got like a really nice one set up in my room. I've got a couple of old computer speakers set up in my bathroom. I've got speakers at work. We got speakers all over the place. And one of the issues that drives me nuts is that you always have to plug in your phone everywhere to do it. And I spent extra money for my amp, for my like main sound system, to have a Bluetooth connection so that I could control it easily from my phone. I could walk away and I could be wireless. And I went out when I first started doing this, and I actually bought online from China these little $5 Bluetooth devices where one end's a USB, and all it does is get power. And on the other end is an audio out. So you'd plug your speaker
Oh,
phones or
okay.
your headphones or whatever into the audio out, and then once it's got
You connect
power,
your phone to that
you
little
connect.
dongle.
Yeah, and it seemed really cool. But it's a $5 Bluetooth device from China, so they worked for a while, and actually syncing them and everything, it just didn't work as seamlessly as I wanted it to. So I looked into, well, okay, if I'm willing to go above $5 for something that works reliably and well, what am I looking at here? And you'd see things like Logitech had a device for like $50 that
Ooh.
was a really reliable Bluetooth device. It worked really well, it synced well, but it's expensive, and all it is a reliable Bluetooth receiver. And there are a couple of different products out there that have similar feature sets, but it's nothing super fancy. It's just that. And here it seems like Google, it feels your pain, and they wanted to create something that takes your dumb passive speakers and turns them into something with a little more smart. And so these are going to be $35 as well. But the idea is you'll all hook them up over Wi-Fi, so there you get better range, better streaming bit rates and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, and it will act as you can use them to play music. You can do Chrome, or you can do Spotify straight through them. You can just sling music like you would with your Chrome. You can cast music to them so they'll play music. You can do cool things like syncing multiple of these devices together. So if you got like a house party going and you
Oh,
got
that's
sound
nice.
systems at every house in every room, yeah, there's just nothing out there like that. And which drives me nuts because it seems like it shouldn't be that hard. And
And now
that's
it's not. Good job,
exactly.
Google.
So yeah, I'm excited about it. I think it'll be they've announced it'll work with iOS, but I wonder to what extent that's true. Like, how easy will it be for me to play Apple Music,
It's got to
from my
just be like
phone?
they'll treat it like a Bluetooth speaker. That's all.
Right. Which is, there's nothing wrong with that. Um, but it'll be, it'll just be interesting to see what limitations there are. But I have a feeling that I'm gonna want to get in on this business because
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that smartening up of the, especially with sound systems, because sound is interesting in that it's something that you can make yourself still. You can make really high end usable audio equipment in a shop and buy the components, and it's a lot. It's not like trying to build your own TV. It's just like, what? Or build your own smartphone. It's
Yeah.
something where as an engineer you can get really into the design and the art of it and building high quality stuff, but that last component of making it really smart, integrating it with the rest of your system, can sometimes be a challenge that can only be overcome with really, really expensive tuners and and just ridiculously overpaying for stuff. When it should be really easy to just get a signal, amplify it, put it in the sound system. That should be really straightforward and cheap. And these sorts of solutions, I think, are going to keep that industry alive, which is exciting to me because it's one that I like to be part of. So, I'm excited about it. I'm definitely. I'll almost certainly get one and try it out. And if it works and it meets my hopes and dreams, I'll probably get more than one. So I like it.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
You have to let us know how it works once you actually get it.
for sure.
Another thing, I think the last thing that's worth talking about is they updated their Google Photos. Some, and just genuinely making it better. I thought one of the interesting things was combining it with the Chromecast, not the audio, but the 2.0 one, was you can have multiple people hook up to the Wi-Fi network and share photos onto the screen, and um, so you can have uh,
Ooh.
yeah, right. So it's not just what are the photos I took, but what are photos from everybody that took it. And if you wanted to, you can pause it and actually sift through the photos to make sure that they're all appropriate. Because what might happen is like you can say, um, you can share photos from an event. And Google Photos is smart enough to know, like, oh, here's here's where it took place, here's when it happened, and so so you might have like, if I'm understanding this correctly, and I hope it works this way because this would be pretty cool. you might say, hey, we all took a vacation and now we're coming back and sharing it with our family or, with other people. And so all the photos that everyone took on that vacation will all show up on that particular slideshow because you can connect all the phones to it and aggregate all the photos together. Because they also have shared libraries where you can do a similar thing and say, hey, everyone contribute to this. And so kind of cool. They're doing a better job of like doing the collaboration side of improving it. And it's gonna be pretty cool. I think there are, I don't want to say it, like I think back probably a year, maybe even 2 years ago. Remember, we were having all those conversations about like there's no good photo sharing stuff out there, and no
Right.
good way to store your photos. And these big companies are listening to our podcast and reacting to that. And so they're starting to come out with things that are genuinely better and good for photo sharing. And so it's exciting to see where this is headed. And if Google's getting in a mix, that's going to push Apple. It's going to push someone else. Dropbox. Yeah. I don't know.
See, and honestly, they like the whole casting images onto the screen, like with Apple TV and AirPlay. It's a great feature, especially like when we're at work. We use it a lot for kind of for meetings and stuff. But being able to have multiple people connected at the same time showing photos, that'd be cool. That'd be really cool. So yeah, I'm hoping it's something that pushes Apple to improve their stuff as well. Competition.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Exactly. So very cool. Good job, Google. All right, let's get on to this because I wanted to bring it up, but I didn't know how to. So NASA ruined The Martian last week. It's horrible timing. Just absolutely destroyed it. I saw The Martian on Thursday, James.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it's awesome.
Is it? Okay, good.
Yeah, it's so good. I'd say if you're a super hardcore fan of the book and you hate movies that do anything but literally translate the book, you might be a little perturbed. But if you're just a pretty big fan of the book,
that's why I do the movie then the book. Solves that problem.
Exactly. But what I will say is I think that the movie actually acts as a great complement to the book because there are visual aspects of the story that I think I was vaguely aware of just because I'm vaguely aware of what space travel is like, but the actual impact of it when you see it on the screen is way different than just being kind of generally aware of what what's going on in the book. So it's cool. It's very cool.
So how did NASA ruin the movie for you?
So they found water.
Oh, well, there you go.
Liquid water.
But I heard that it wasn't a lot and not potable. And
well, see, yes, those are true. It's not a lot, and it's not.
Did you see the XKCD cartoon based on it? By the way,
I think I did. They turned 10 this week.
What?
They turned 10 this week.
Did they? No way.
Yeah, it was the 10-year anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why I actually linked it. That's one of the articles we were going to talk about. So perfect.
Yeah, here. I mean, here it's xkcd.com. Wait, am I allowed to do that?
xkcd.net. It's .com.
Let's see here. There was a similarities. No. Yeah, so it says that concludes the press conference. Any questions? So they just, this is NASA. It says, yes, it just says the news. He says, yeah, I have a microphone, so I'm real loud now. How does this Mars data compare to data from other fields, like medicine or sports? I was like, that question makes no sense. He's like, if there's water on Mars, is it ruined? Or will it be okay when it dries out? It's like, any other questions? What were those guys? I like this. What were those guys hassling Luke in Mos Eisley Cantina trying to accomplish? I felt like it was supposed. I felt like I was supposed to understand that. It's like anyone else. That's my question too.
Yeah.
Were they just picking a fight? If so, why did? Yeah,
Yeah,
just
that's
super
that's
funny.
hilarious.
Yeah,
That's
and then
this.
what was the hover over was why are we spending billions to ruin Mars with swarms of robots when Elon Musk has promised to ruin Mars for a fraction of the cost?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, but
that's so funny.
anyways,
I
yeah, a nice little cartoon and to celebrate the finding of water.
Yeah, it's a huge deal because what it means, and actually the writer of the movie said, like, somebody asked him, like, well, this is huge because everybody's talking about Mars, isn't this so great for your movie? And the I think it was the writer was of the movie was like, actually it's kind of terrible. I wish they would have waited like a week because till the movie was out, because now everybody's gonna be like, oh, it's inaccurate because you say there's no water on Mars. And which I think is dumb. I think the reality of it is that, like you said, there's not much, and it's super salty. So the question is, could it support microbial life? And they're not sure if it could. But the real significant impact of it is that there is ice caps being frozen in on Mars, and large enough and close enough to the surface that when it gets hot enough, it does leak out.
Huh,
And the implication of that being we don't need to bring water to Mars to have water. We can get there and then process it when we get there. Because
that's cool.
the one thing that is true with Mars is that there's plenty of sunlight. So if the question is how are we going to do this from an energy standpoint, the answer is solar cells. We'll just do it.
Yeah.
And so that's the significance of that discovery. It just
Wow, the
means
red
that,
planet would turn into a green planet. I can appreciate that.
yeah. Elon Musk also announced that he wants to send people to Mars for $500,000 each. One-way tickets so they can colonize it,
Of
and not
course.
and you would pay that $500,000. So like you'd sell your house, get on a rocket ship, and go to Mars. And that's his strategy moving forward on colonizing Mars. And the presence of liquid water suggests that it's one of those things where it's like it suggests that the direction we're moving forward in going to Mars has even more promise than we realized. But one of the things that I think is fascinating from NASA's perspective and like just a tech perspective, they're like they have decided that they need to go way out of their way to avoid getting close to the water with the current rover that we have there. Uh, for two
Why?
reasons. For two reasons. Number one, they sent it there on the premise that Mars is a dry planet, so it's not waterproof.
Nah.
You're like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. But the other dilemma, and this is actually the one they're even more concerned about, believe it or not, is they are concerned that they build these things in clean rooms and they go way out of their way to make sure there's nothing that could possibly ruin it from a contamination perspective, but they're not bacteria free, not completely. That's possible but difficult to do. And so theoretically that rover has bacteria on it. And so if you
Oh,
touch the water and it is a survivable condition for that bacteria, if there are no microbial life on Mars right now, but all of a sudden microbial life starts growing because we introduced it, when we have to ask the question, well, where did it come from? Was it from Earth or was there microbial life? So the whole question of can life like happen outside of Earth without human intervention would be ruined. We wouldn't be able to answer that question. But and
but you're
almost
gonna have that
worse,
problem no matter what if a human steps foot onto that planet.
yeah. So it really does complicate the issue. And there are techniques that can be used there because there's this up in Siberia. There's this frozen lake that's like hundreds of feet of frozen ice and then liquid water. And we think that that liquid water has been sealed for probably millions of years. And we don't have any idea what's down there. And there's a lot of interest in getting down to that level of water and taking samples. But it's really important to not introduce any foreign substances into it so that we can not wreck that ecosystem by sending our hardy microbes into it, and b not contaminating the very experiment you're trying to run. And so there are methods that are being worked out for that very question that they take very seriously. How do you go in, take a sample, and come out without introducing anything that could ruin that experiment? But no,
Yeah.
it's fascinating. It's cool.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
It's exciting. There are a lot of science and engineering that's going to be done over the next couple of years to answer this question.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. That's good. That's good.
Oh man, I'm on a roll. I got the next
Yeah.
couple
Yeah.
articles,
You
don't
got
I?
a ton of these. Yep.
So, have you heard about? So we've talked about the pin and chip before, which is if you get a new credit card,
Yep.
it's got the little chip on it.
I just got one last week. Yeah.
Nice. Well, this week officially, the move has been made where up until this point, credit card companies backed fraud. They're the ones that deal with fraud if there is or they're the ones that are liable if there is fraud with your credit card. So they'll take care of it. They'll, if somebody steals your credit card information and makes purchases on it, then and that's proved, then they'll reverse the charges. It comes out of their pocket. And then we all collectively bear the burden of that cost. But the rules have changed for your swipe style cards, the electric tapes, where it is now it will be the responsibility of the merchants. If you're using the swipe style card and there's fraud, they will be liable for it. It's a huge change in how we do, fraud liability. The trick being that if you use the pin and chip method, which is your new card, the liability will still be on the credit card companies.
Mm.
So it's a method of incentivizing the transition to a more secure protocol for transferring money. And why we don't all just get onto Apple Pay or Google Wallet, I don't understand. But take its time, I guess. One of the things I wanted to talk about this week is everybody says it's way more secure because it's got two-part authentication. So you got to know the PIN and you got to put your card in. And I just kind of that bothered me because debit cards have been doing that for a long time, and that doesn't seem like that great of an innovation. It's not that big of a leap, and yet everybody really insisted. The reason why the credit card companies want to do this is because it's more secure. And so I did a little research this week to figure out what is actually going on in this to make these credit cards more secure, and I wanted to share my discoveries with you.
Yeah, I'm interested.
Basically what happens is that little chip on it, that little square, it's got a little bit of silicon baked into it, and it holds all your credit card data in that chip. But most importantly, it holds all that credit card data in the chip in a encrypted state, and it uses a key method to actually unlock that information, to decrypt it. And it is capable of, when you put it into the reader, it actually powers it up, turns it on, it starts to work, and you have to feed it the right keys in order to get any information out of it. And then it passes encrypted information to the banks for them to I should say this. There are a number of different protocols that you can use that are considered acceptable that banks can work with. The most secure being you actually have to feed it a passcode, a code before it will release any information, and then it will pass out encrypted information that only the banks can decrypt, which is your actual credit card number. As opposed to the swipe method, which is just basically your credit card number, your street address, and something else. Just basically all of your credit card information. It's just plain text recorded onto the magnetic strip. So anybody that swipes it can read it. And cards are really easy to manufacture. So with where you rewrite it onto them, so you can basically create a fake credit card very quickly. And the only information that wasn't encoded onto the magnetic strip was that little security code in the back, that 3-digit security code.
Right.
and that was supposed to be proof that you had the card. You had the physical card, but obviously, if you swiped the card and then created a fake one, it would still work at banks, and so right, like at Safeway.
Yeah,
So
because they never ask for the 3 digits.
right. So it's a because it's what it is it's like I said, because it's supposed to be proof that you have the card. If you're swiping with the card, the assumption is, well, you have the card. So why do we need that? And nobody,
Yeah.
people don't look at it's just one of those. So it actually is a lot more secure. It's kind of cool, and it still does nothing for online purchases, which was where the direction we're moving, and it makes you kind of wonder what we're gonna do about that. But
And that's where like Apple Pay and there are a few other services that if you trust those services, they give you temporary account numbers and allow for one time
right.
whatever's. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I think it's interesting. One of the things that I think is interesting with this, and for the bigger perspective, is that it is forcing everybody to go out and buy. All the merchants are going out and buying new card readers, and it's just going to be part of that cost. Is going to be It's going to be very easy to buy card readers that have NFC built into them, and
yeah, but
it will.
Verifone does not, and it's driving me nuts because whoever the merchant is in this area is sending them like crazy, and none of them have
That's
the whatever that I can't even
NFC.
think of. NFC. It's
That's
I'm
obnoxious.
super frustrated. People they're all upgrading. None of them have NFC. I'm just every time like, really? This is the one you decided to go with. So whoever the Verifone salesperson is just making a killing in this area.
Yeah,
Makes
that's
me want to move
annoying.
out.
I'm not telling you what to do with your life, James. I'm not telling you what to do.
It's just so
But
frustrating.
they're all over the place where I live.
Yeah, I know.
um,
You got a better sales rep in your area.
it's true. I just lost my place. Cool.
Non-volatile photonic memory chips. I have no
Yeah.
idea what that means.
So non-volatile memory is basically there's two types of memory in your. There's now three, but there's two primary types: RAM and hard drives. The difference being RAM, when you remove electricity from it, everything in it goes away. It resets the RAM. Your hard drive, you remove power, it stays. And your hard drive can work in disk formats. It can work in what's it called? Your what, flash memory, your jump drives. CDs are considered non-volatile memory because it doesn't require power to save its state. Um, you know, Mixtapes, all those sorts of things are called considered non-volatile memory. And as we're moving forward, one of the next phases in computer technology that's kind of seen as a near future pathway forward are photonic processors, basically using light instead of electrons to run all up and down the silicon lattice, and you build your logic gates out of photonic transistors, and they've done a lot of research to build RAM and processors, and are definitely moving down that path to be able to do that. But there's been this kind of hanging question of how do you build light powered non-volatile memory like flash or a hard drive? How would we actually go about doing that in a very fast and efficient way? This company, or this research lab, sorry, they came out with a chip that does that. It's pretty cool. Basically, it works just like a rewritable DVD. Rewritable DVDs are they have
Huh.
a what's it called? It's an alloy that they put down that when it gets hit with a high powered laser, it actually distorts. And a low power laser won't distort it, but it will reflect differently based on whether or not it's distorted. So you hit it with a high powered laser, you read it once and it gives you a 1. You hit it with a high power laser, the low power laser reflects differently and it gives you a 0. But if you
Hmm.
hit it with a high power laser again, it will shift back to its original state. So it will in a binary fashion go from one to the other.
That's
And
convenient.
yeah, it's really
Machine
cool.
code.
So it's a rewritable. So they basically embedded this stuff into silicon and sort of worked out hitting it with high powered lasers, and they figured out, yeah, we could totally make this work, which is cool because photonic processors, if when they get here, are going to be awesome. They're going to be really fast, really low power, um, and wicked expensive at first, but
It's always
it
there, always are.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So
That sounds sweet. Did it kind of give an idea of like, are we 2 years out, 20 years out?
I'd guess probably closer to 20.
Okay, okay.
Um, the time I didn't link the article, but New York Times did a huge article this last week, kind of talking about what we've talked about before with the whole end of Moore's law, and that we're really getting to the edge of what is physically possible in the continuing miniaturization of transistors, and that technology is going to be around for hundreds of years probably at its current state and at various sizes behind us, because there's a lot of different advantages at different levels. That being said, to continue to go forward and increase speed and increase efficiency, we're going to have to figure out what to do with things other than electrons. And this is a pretty promising one because you could, you know, you can. So it's a promising next step. That being said, we still probably have another 10 to 15 years of silicon manufacturing and progression left in us before there needs to be something next. And I have a feeling that, companies like Intel aren't going to be racing to, well, they are kind of racing, but they're going to squeeze out every dollar they can out of silicon as we go forward. So it'll happen in the near future, but not Elon Musk time frame.
Gotcha. That's fair. That makes sense.
Mm.
For this next one, it totally reminds me of the kid who didn't get what he wants, and so he takes his ball and goes home.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Story. Yeah.
I was going to say, for those of you listening, we're referring to Amazon as that kid who is butthurt.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can buy all sorts of stuff on Amazon. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. It's more than just books nowadays.
That's what I've heard. Yeah, electronic books,
yeah,
audiobooks. Yeah.
So they obviously they have some pretty cool services like their Amazon Video and stuff like that, and you can buy really cool things like Apple TV and the Nexus TV and other competitive
Pretty much all
devices
the
like that.
Apple hardware, right?
Oh yeah. You can buy
lots of different Google phones.
Yeah, exactly. And so Amazon announced this week that they will not be selling any Chromecasts or Apple TVs specifically that do not are anymore on their service. And the reason why is they say they don't natively support Amazon streaming, so we don't want to support them. It's a bold move.
I get it, dude. Amazon, man. They strike me as the third wheel,
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're one of the horsemen. I get it, but you're not in the lead.
Sometimes they do stuff that is just amazing and so cool and so forward thinking, and then sometimes they do stuff where you're just like, what is going on? The only justification I could see in this, and I think if this is the case, they did a terrible job of explaining that, is that you could almost see it being one of those things where they're saying, look, we've got a lot of Amazon Prime members that love our service, and they're not very smart. And they go out and buy an Apple TV thinking that it'll play, Amazon streaming services, and it doesn't. And so we don't want to carry anything in our store, quote unquote, that doesn't work with one of our primary core services. We don't fault Apple for not having, Chromecast in the Apple store. We don't
right,
for example. But
or it's like if they do suddenly come out with a competing product, then we have seen this before, right? Where they we have what was the one that they did? I feel like it was like Beats related or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Like
It was
Bose
Bose. Yeah,
suddenly no longer around, right? And you're like, yeah, I
yeah,
get it. I get it. So I get it with Amazon. Totally makes sense.
yeah.
It's
I
just
get
kind
why
of
you would
weird
do it.
because they sell everything and
Well,
except for the
and
sound.
the other weird part about it is, I'm sure they got an Apple TV when Apple released them to developers. I'm sure they were one of the ones that were given development platforms and were told, "Hey, go build an Amazon TV app for the Apple TV."
Yeah, why
Like,
not?
well,
I'd be
yeah, I
shocked
don't
if that was something
understand.
where both. I mean, I'd be shocked about Apple, but especially shocked with Google, right? Because Google's like, yeah, we'll play nice with anybody and everybody.
Yeah. Well, and I think the Chromecast is an interesting case because it doesn't really play nice with anybody and everybody. It doesn't inherently support anything. You have to be able to use, the Chromecast app, which on iOS doesn't isn't so, like, you couldn't use a Chromecast on the Amazon app on your phone in order to get it to work. So it actually does cut out
Oh, okay.
Amazon. And and
I thought
I
it worked with like Netflix and
Well, it does. If you're like, it works on anything. It works with anything on your, if that functionality is built into the app. So like YouTube, for example, if you are near a Chromecast and
oh,
you have
okay.
YouTube open on your phone, you can send that to the Chromecast on the local network on from your iPhone. But Amazon would have to build that into their own services, and they haven't, and I don't understand why. And I don't know. I feel like it was a weird movement, and then the question is, like, are they going to sell the new Apple TV when it comes out? Because they can, and almost certainly will build um a a streaming service, or is it just the current generation Apple TV that doesn't have it built into it? If Apple decided to come back and say, look, sorry, no harm, no foul, we'll build an Amazon streaming app, and do they come back and do that? I don't know. I wonder where this came. It just seems to come out of the blue. It seems like the sort of thing that they should have been able to work out behind the scenes. I
Yeah.
don't know. I wonder what's going on that they felt like they needed to make a very public show of their influence in order to force the hands of their competitors, because it doesn't benefit Amazon to, to uh, I would think that Amazon would be much better off with people like me getting Amazon Prime and using it with my Apple TV, as opposed to trying to force me to buy one of their Fire TV things. So I I don't know what their strategy in all of this is, but it did seem quite childish. That was an
Yes.
apt description for it. Um,
Of course,
we'll see.
they're not the only ones acting childish.
That's true. So this is my final article for the day. iFixit, which is a pretty cool website. They take things apart and they do really good reviews of devices. Then they
Yeah, they're
report
super
their
cool.
reliability and everything. Yeah, they've got some really great. It's a good platform, and uh, they are Apple developers. They've got an iFixit app where you can get all of their content. You could get all of their content. um, and because they're a developer, they were able to sign up for the early access to the Apple TV, which they won the lottery for, and they got. And
That's
they're
amazing.
I know, and they did exactly what you'd think they did, which was take it apart, post pictures online. But Apple is crazy when it comes to, like, keeping stuff secret. Like, you're not allowed to build apps, and with, like, when you have, like, Xcode, the betas of Xcode and, like, the new versions of Swift, you're not allowed to make tutorials where you take screenshots of those of what you're doing and put those online until it is out of beta. If you're going to do a tutorial on a new language, you have to do it all in all text. You have to do it in all explanation. There's a lot of tutorials online that were written that way for that reason, and they're just very and they are notorious for having zero patience and will pull your developer's license. And the moment your developer license gets pulled, they will they remove all apps associated with your developer's license. So iFixit, in a very public manner, broke the Apple terms of use by disassembling an Apple TV and posting it online
And
before the
everything
launch.
I've been reading about it, they're saying like iFixit's the one who was in the wrong here.
Oh yeah, yeah. This
not
is totally
not Apple just being petulant like normal.
yeah. Well, and they've even iFixit. They admitted early on. They were like, "Look, this is what we do. This is how we work, and we knew we were breaking the terms of service. We knew there was a risk, but." We just figured Apple wouldn't give us one if they didn't think we were going to take them
Dude,
apart.
they don't look
I
at the
know,
list. It's a
I
lottery
know.
system,
It
right?
was a, it
They
was
just
a,
you're on
yeah.
it, they mail it. They don't
I
look at
know,
it and go,
I
"Ooh,
know.
boy, I don't know about this," right? Because then they would get into a ton of trouble because that's not a lottery. So
Right.
come on, guys.
I think it was yeah, I think they weren't thinking. I think they just did. I don't think it ever crossed their I honestly, you know, I don't think they thought they'd get in trouble. And it's funny. I think Apple I think when it happened and I think one of the reasons why it took so long for Apple to pull their app and go through everything because it was huge. I mean, a week ago, it's been on the internet for a while. I think the reason why it took Apple so long is because they were probably just super frustrated that iFixit did that. Because as far as they're concerned, iFixit is a great thing for their platform. They act as free advertising. They're a giant platform. It's a really well rated downloaded a million times app. It's the sort of thing that Apple wants to be able to support what they're doing because they support Apple. They named themselves with the I nomenclature. I mean, they've got a relationship. The problem is that you could let iFixit do it, but what would but all of a sudden you sent a message of there are times that Apple will let you get away with it. And up to this point, they're brutal about just no, I don't care what your app is. I don't care, I don't care if you've got 10,000 downloads and you're making $100 a month and you think you're cool stuff. You broke the terms of service. You're done. You're out. This isn't how it works. And I got to believe that Apple was just they were so irritated because it's like we don't want to do this. We don't want to have to do this to you guys. Like
Yeah, I've got to imagine that behind the scenes, it was Apple reached out to them, had a conversation. It's just kind of like, what the heck? and, and honestly was looking for an apology
right,
and probably didn't get it and went, all right, and then, ran it up the whole legal command and made sure that what they did was actually wrong. And you know what I mean? Like it sounds like they took the steps to do it right.
right.
And then, and I would not be surprised if you see their app back on the store, in 6 months or a year.
Oh yeah,
It's not going to be like, what is it, Gawker, right?
yeah,
Banned for life. You're not
yeah,
going to have that because Gawker was clearly malicious
yeah,
and whatever.
yeah.
But I don't know. I could see where they do come back
I
eventually.
think I think that's the case. I so it's very my gut is that Apple was they were upset that it happened, but they were even upset that it's the classic, you tell your kid if you don't stop throwing a fit, I'm not going to take you to the zoo, and they don't stop throwing a fit, and now you're in this position of like, oh, why did you? I wanted to take you to the zoo. I wasn't looking for an excuse
Yeah.
to not taking you to the. Why did you do that? Why did you put me in this position? Like, and but now it's a question of do you follow through the punishment or not? And Apple, they know themselves. They know well enough that you gotta. And I think, but like you said, I think that they're gonna come back and they're gonna find a way to, get them back onto the developer platform, and in an appropriate amount of time.
Yeah.
Um, I could also see it be something like there's another app or another company that kind of like what Flickster does with Rotten Tomatoes, where Rotten Tomatoes doesn't have their own app, but you can access all that data through Flickster. And I wonder if that's going to be the back route that iFixit's going to take, where they'll just be another quote unquote third party that actually builds the app, and they're just pulling the same data from.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I can see
It's a
that.
different, fun, interesting drama. But that's it. I'm done.
You're done. All right. I got just one last one because I thought it was interesting from a funding standpoint. Elio Motors is a company that's making or wants to make a. You could think of it as a 3-wheeled car, but it's technically a motorcycle because it has 3 wheels. And they've got the design, they've got the prototype, and they've got the manufacturing plant, which is like a former GM Motors thing. However, they don't have the $300 million that they need to actually start production.
It's a lot of money.
But they do have 45,000 pre-orders, so they got that going.
That's
Yeah.
a lot of pre-orders.
And the problem that they've been running into is that private equity people, funders, they don't like to do pre-revenue investments because there's a lot of risk. And VCs think that it's way too big of a project to do an eventual like follow-up check. And because they like to do multiple, they like to say, well, let's get you started, and then and then we'll do another round, right, and give you more money if it's successful, right? That's how they kind of hedge their bets. So they're having trouble raising money, but they're like, we've got 45,000 pre-orders, we've got the manufacturing plant, you know what I mean? Like, they're ready to rock and roll and just can't get the money, which is super frustrating.
Right.
So thanks to Regulation A+, which is the new SEC regulation that finally allows non-accredited investors to invest in private startups.
Freedom.
Part of the Jobs Act. They're taking it to the crowd.
Nice.
The crowd. Yeah, so it's kind of cool, and I didn't fully know how this worked, and so I think this is a cool case study for it, where the idea is they go through a period where they can advise and accept investments, and investors can pledge essentially a non-binding amount. You could say, yeah, I'll give you $1,000 and then change your mind later. That's what it comes down to. And
interesting.
Yeah. And so what happens is they can do a series or a round, right? When they kind of have to declare ahead of time, like, we're trying to raise this much money. In this case, it was $24 million, I think. That's what it was. Something like that. 25 million. And so once they get enough people, it's like, think Kickstarter almost. Where it's like, once they get enough people, they'd be like, all right, cool. We're going to then submit this form to the SEC that essentially it's like an S1 or something. I don't know. It's got some letter, whatever. It doesn't matter. They submit it to the SEC saying, okay, we advertised, we've got these commitments. They're non-binding, but we've got these commitments. We want to start collecting money. And then what'll happen is the SEC goes through and does their due diligence. They actually look at the finances, which you have to publish all that. It's kind of like going public without going public.
Interesting.
It's kind of how to think about it, because these are non-accredited investors. And then once the SEC is like, all right, yeah, we see that you're legit, then you can go and actually collect the money and be good to go. And what's interesting with this one is, like, so far they've had over 100,000 investors that have pledged $37 million. But again, they say, we're going to collect 25 million. So this is where it's different than Kickstarter, because whatever you say you're going to collect, because essentially you're creating shares in your company, right, that's worth $25 million. And so they're like, yeah, we're going to have to say no to some people. And
interesting.
Yeah. And they're like, we actually think this will help with demand in the future. Because it's like, either you're in or you're out right now, because we've got 5 other people behind you.
Right.
And in their particular case, that's what they'll be able to do. And so they actually think it'll help them in later rounds of funding with the SEC, and
that's
trying
cool.
to do it this crowdsourcing method. And so they're using Start Engine is the company that's helping them go through and do their stuff. And they're kind of like, they're like, well, we don't actually know if this is going to work, because this was only ratified or whatever in June. And so no one's actually done it yet. So they're like, so we think it'll work. I don't know. According to all the rules, it should work. And by the way, they're using that money as kind of like seed money as a down payment. They're going to get a $186 million loan from the Department of Energy, which gives out loans to help reduce oil and create jobs and whatever. They've funded projects like with Tesla and Ford and Nissan. So they've, so they feel pretty good. If we can get at least an equivalent of a down payment and show that there's demand, which they got everything going for them, except for the investors. And honestly, once they've proven it, that's when I'm sure they're going to turn back to those private equity people and go, "Hey, look, we're making it." You know what I mean? So they're really having to two-step it and make it work. It's kind of fascinating that this this company, they definitely got a dream, they got a vision, and they're not letting the lack of funding slow them down. They're trying out different avenues, and it's pretty cool. And so we'll see how that goes. If you see a three-wheeled car, you'll know what happened, and if it worked out or not. But I think you're gonna see. I think this is a real like a test case. Yeah, that's right. For what could happen in the future here. So, if it works out pretty well for them and it all seems to be pretty smooth and the SEC is pretty easy to play with, I think you'll see a lot other like manufacturing startups who are like, hey, we want to do something of scale here. Try to head down that route, and and it's cool because if you can't get the commitments, all right, that kind of tells you where you're at,
right?
And you're done. But I thought it was cool.
That is very cool. It's interesting watching these companies.
And by the way, it's a three-wheeled vehicle. The base price is a complete opposite of Tesla, $6,800.
Woo!
And 84 miles to the gallon. It's kind of what they're going for, and it looks like it probably holds like 3 gallons.
It's basically a motorcycle.
Basically with a little cover on it. Yeah. Exactly.
It's cool. Exactly. Hey, it's legit.
Yeah.
You don't need a crossover SUV to do everything.
No, you don't, right?
Cool.
All right, man. I think that's what we got.
It is.
So everybody else, thanks for joining us, and just thank you so much for listening to episode. What are we at? 210. We really do genuinely appreciate it. And don't forget, you can check out all the show notes with all the links at furlobros.com. Again, that's episode 210. And we're only going to say this once. James, you can say no. Yeah?
James.
What?
We're such an idiot.
We are?
Yeah. It's our 4-year anniversary of the show.
Is it?
That's what I wanted to mention in the show opening.
Oh.
That was yesterday, October 3rd, 2011. It's our first show.
Well, happy anniversary to us.
That's perfect timing. I've been thinking about that all week and completely flubbed it when it was finally time. At least it was a good show.
That's good. Sweet. Well, awesome. Well, you can help us celebrate our 4th anniversary. And again, you don't have to. You are free to not do this. We're not going to pressure you into it, but you really should. You can go to, again, it's furlobros.com. Go to any of the episodes, like potentially this one, our 4th year anniversary one, 210. And at the bottom of the show notes is a little form where you can sign up to have the notes sent directly to you every single week so that you can also have all the links right to your inbox. Super convenient, and just listen to it, the show actually too, just by clicking on it from there. So that's something that you can do. No pressure, but a little bit. But no, really, you should do it. Yeah. All right. Oh man, that kind of I feel like more needs to be said. 4 years. Woohoo.
Yeah.
It's all right. It happens. Maybe we'll belated it next week or something.
Exactly.
Who knows? All right. Awesome. I am James Furlo. My 4-year anniversary gambling brother is Matthew Furlo. And we will talk next time. And normally this is where we'd have music, but I upgraded to El Capitan and it messed up all my audio channels, so we don't. So, there's that.
Thanks a lot, Apple. Another one in the negative category.
All right. Talk to you later.